All right, we're back with the death lineup, talking about the Warriors beating the Celtics, whether or not that rejuvenates the team, talk about some of these young players who are playing pretty well. And we got to talk about that Steph GOAT conversation that Shaq brought up. Kenny immediate was like, no. And Shaq was like, why not? And Kenny is a point guard. He's a little point guard, not sticking up for the little point guards. I was very disappointed in
I feel like
Kenny.
it is the little point guards who usually don't end up sticking up for Steph anyway. Like if you ask Isaiah Thomas right now who the greatest point guard of all time is, like he's probably going to say himself or Magic. Like he's not going to say Steph.
But he's a little point guard himself.
Exactly, that's my point. I think the little point guards are the ones who have the biggest vendetta against Steph than any other because they were back in the day like drive, mid range. Tim Hardaway, I watched some of those clips and he's really that guy could have played in the modern day, but he's not really like 3-point oriented. Like Steph really just changed the game, extended the game out, and I think there's a jealousy there that I don't know if they'll. I mean, it was quite apparent when he was coming up, but now that he's like completely established and you can't dispute the fact that he isn't at least top 10, and in some people's eyes, like top 12, top 15. But I still think some of those point guards have this like weird, we can't admit it. We're bigger and stronger. Why is he better?
Yeah, it is. If you look at the list, and we'll save that for the end of the conversation, there are many arguable players who are high on that list. When you look at what Steph has done, not only championships, but numbers, like you said, changing the game. It was not a stupid point by Shaq, but like you said, people are not going to give Steph credit because he's not 6'9" and, running through guys and like it's just a different NBA than what they are used to thinking is great, which it is kind of weird. And I do wonder if we have this conversation in 20 years and the league gets smaller, not necessarily shorter, but even like look, two of the tallest players who are actually playing quality basketball, Wembanyama and Chet, they're skinny. Like they don't look like David Robinson or Shaq. The game is, the actual game is way different. So, but let's first talk about this win against Celtics. Do you think that this is going to change them in any way for the better? Do you think this gets them out of their rut? Do you think this inspires them to start playing better basketball, beating the best team in the league record-wise and also a team that desperately wants to beat you because you beat them in the finals a couple years ago? Does this change the season in any way?
I think it does. How much does it like ignite them to say that, hey, we could do this? We just did it against them. That is to be seen, but I definitely think it does more harm than good beating the Boston Celtics in the fashion that they did too. So I mean, maybe it, ignites some of the guys who I don't think Steph and Clay personally need like this type of reminder that we're still, we still got it like that. But maybe, the Kumingas and the Pajemskis and the Trace Jackson Davises need that type of like fuel to show them like, hey, we could actually compete out here. So, I mean, that game to me, like watching Steph and Clay trade tough three-pointer after tough three-pointer down the stretch in the fourth quarter and then bleeding into overtime was literally just like watching 2016. Like I can't like that was probably the last time we saw them two carrying us to a victory because past then you have KD and then Clay goes down, so we haven't really had, and then Clay you haven't really seen those type of Clay shots in a while. So I was just watching that and just like I just remember how I was acting as like a kid, like jumping out of my seat, not sitting down in the couch watching these games because you just know something's going to happen. So that was an insanely fun game. I think one of my top favorite plays too. I think it was overtime or again late in the fourth. No, I would think it was overtime. I think Clay already took a questionable shot and missed it. And he was driving
took some
to the
questionable ones after he hit the big one.
Yeah. And so he's driving, and you just like, Clay from 2021 to yesterday or to 3 days ago would have just taken this like kind of questionable floater or done the, fadeaway and mid range that you just like don't really believe in. No, he kicks it on a pick and roll to Trace Jackson Davis, who got the flush. And that was just like, I think that's all I needed That was one of my favorite plays in the game. There's like, a few of them, Trace's block, that Clay pass. And there was even one on defense that I know I tweeted out recently that I'm used to watching Warriors basketball where they take advantage of defensive matchups defensively. Like if Clay, if they're trying to switch Steph onto the lead ball handler, like the point of attack guy especially against that Maverick series. I remember one thing that that reminded me of that Maverick series or one thing that stuck out to me was that Luka was just trying to get Steph on him every single possession. But what they do is Steph would hang on for like 0.5 seconds until Wiggs could catch up and get Luka. Then Steph would sprint back to guard Hardaway Jr. or something like that. We haven't seen that lately. We've seen Kuminga not fight over screens so that Steph gets stuck on the guy, or we've seen Wiggs not fight over screens, or we've seen even as easy as CP3 gets switched onto a big and Saric is right next to him, and they're not just quickly switching and like, yo, like let's just really quickly switch so you're not stuck on a big. Last night, I finally saw them starting to, and they were targeting Steph late there with 5 fouls, but I saw Kuminga fight over a few screens to try and make sure Steph wasn't stuck on the point of attack guy because they were hunting him. And I mean, the only one that I can remember, like point out, like specifically and probably find like the clip for it, Derek White made a 3-pointer out of it. But I think that was just refreshing to see because with Draymond not on the court, you're not seeing those smart quarterback defensive adjustments. Like, hey, you need to make sure to switch here. You need to make sure to do that. So I think that was like defensively, maybe there's some light as well as we've seen offensively, especially, I mean, the emergence of Trace, like that should be the next topic.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because it is very important to this conversation, being that they don't have bigs that can match up in a very athletic way. So before we get to the Trace thing, you said something very interesting, which was you thought it could be bad for Steph and Clay to take over that game. What do you mean exactly by that?
Did I say that? Did I say I thought it would be bad?
You said you thought it might not be the best for them, and I thought you were saying because Clay is going to think that he's Clay of 2016.
No, that's not what I meant. What I meant was that I don't think Steph and Clay needed this type of win to show them that they could still compete. I think it was more of the younger players that
got it.
Because that was the original question. Like, does this win against Boston, the best team in the league, possibly the second best team last year, does this win like, give them a little more fuel to the fire, that a little wake up call, or even just like a little, something. I don't think it does it as much for Steph and Clay. I think it does it more for the rookies.
So do you think the rookies or the younger players, well, Kuminga and Moody have actually seen this team play at the highest of
times, but they've never really contributed to it.
So, but Pajemski, TJD, guys like that,
even like CP on the new team, maybe just guys who aren't familiar with how Steph and Clay, and CP's been on the opposing end of it, but just like having him on our team, just the guys who have never really like been on the court while it's happening for them.
Okay, so beating Boston, it didn't really seem like it changed the national conversation about the Warriors. It was like, oh yeah, they got hot and whatever. But when it comes to matching up with some of these teams down the line, I feel like that was like a Steph thing saying, hey, like, yeah, we're struggling, but don't forget. Like, that's what that game meant to me was, because let's look, and I don't know if Boston was a little too proud in the way that they defended him, but you go back to some of the games in which he played poorly, this dude is getting like triple teamed and he's getting trapped like in moments where you don't even really need to do that yet. And Boston kind of played him like they played him in the 22 finals. I thought it was so weird. Or even last year, remember we were making fun of Sam Hauser trying to guard Steph last year? And I was just like, okay, what are they going to do different? We know what he can do against Sam Hauser. We know what he can do against Al Horford. What are they going to do to change this thing up defensively? And they played him exactly the same as they always play him. So I wasn't surprised to see him go off. But I guess my question is, from the national perspective, do you think, like, say, Denver, they play Denver on Christmas. Do you think Denver sees this game and goes, okay, he can do that in our house if we let him, and we're going to defend them a little bit differently than Boston did?
I don't know. I don't think Denver takes us lightly. I think I think they've always prepared accordingly. Like they don't see us as like, oh, they're struggling. Let's, this will be easy. No, I think they know, especially after beating them in the playoffs. So no, I don't think this win against Boston changes much to Denver's approach. If we beat Denver, though, I mean, there's the national like, hey, are the Warriors contenders conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have Washington and then Portland again. I think if you win both of those, you're what, 5 straight? You're winning 5 straight. I don't know how much that changes the discourse because the only quality team you beat in that stretch was potentially Brooklyn, but for sure Boston.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So let's talk about these younger players. These guys, Kuminga, I think Kuminga and Jackson Davis, they got the minutes in order to show what they could do in those moments. Wiggins, Steve Kerr left Wiggins on the bench in the fourth quarter, almost like it was like 15 minutes straight or something like that. If you take the overtime and the end of the fourth quarter, but also no Saric, right? So it's CP, it's Steph, it's Kuminga, it's Jackson, and it's Clay. And I do wonder if Podziemski didn't get hurt. I do wonder if that would have changed the lineup in any way. But I think that was a shot in the arm, more so for Kuminga than Jackson Davis, because I don't know if you read Marcus Thompson's story on Podziemski, but Jonathan Kuminga was quoted several times in that story, sort of saying like, he deserves to be out there. Like, he needs the minutes. Like, it's crazy that he's getting this time, but he deserves it. Like, I was almost wondering if Kuminga was like, man, if I just got those minutes, as a young player that he's getting. But at the same time, there is a different energy that Podziemski brings, which we saw Kuminga bring in that game. Literally just energy and rebounding and running the floor and active on defense. Yeah, that the Tatum play right at the end, you saw Steph kind of give him the big, that's what I'm talking about after he stops Tatum. What the heck is Tatum doing?
What is he doing? What is he doing? This is the guy. He hasn't changed. Remember, we had that podcast like of I think it was either during the finals or after the finals of like, hey, what do these guys need to change?
Yeah.
Tatum has not changed one bit in terms of the physicality, like avoiding physicality by not going to the rim and just settling for threes. Like it was a tie game. Why go for a 3? Like he intentionally stepped back for 3. You could take a mid range. You could. That's a questionable one.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. Not that I was frustrated or anything. Like I was kind of happy that he took that shot. That's the shot that I wanted him to take, right? Because there's no pressure on the defense. It's like, oh yeah, he makes that shot, great. That's it's a deep shot. He's kind of going for the glory a little bit there. But the hard shot is to actually put pressure on Kuminga, make Kuminga go backwards a little bit, and then
maybe even draw a foul. Like that's
draw a foul, crossover, get to 15 feet and then pull up. So I was happy with that. But let's talk about Jackson Davis, because the reason why I said it's more sort of important to Kuminga is because he's had these struggles on the opposite side of where he gets pulled out. Like there was a game not too long ago where was this the Portland? I can't actually remember. It might have been the Brooklyn game where he only played like 10 seconds in the fourth quarter, and they immediately substituted him back out. And I was like, oh, this poor guy. But so Kuminga, obviously he's dealt with this, but I think for Jackson Davis, he's like, like, I don't have any reference point about what this even means. But man, like this dude is 6'9", playing like he's 2 inches taller, because he can jump and he can move and he can pass. And if he had a little bit of a baby jumper, like maybe Podziemski's to teach him that little lefty baby hook, maybe that will be a go-to for him. But if he had like a little 15-foot jumper, I'm not sure, I'm not sure he doesn't get 25 minutes every game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's. I mean, I think it's. I think it's Dunleavy sitting back and watching Bob and Lakeup discuss over trying to hit a home run in the draft by going young and by going potential with Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, and then it's just what sucks is that I said this on draft night. I said that okay, so they just drafted Dante DiVincenzo's replacement. Bad defensive, worse defensively, but like same shooter, same level shooter, and then also same level rebounder. And then it was like, then I had to be reminded that I was like, oh, wait, Steve Kerr doesn't play rookies. So I just completely nixed that take. That's never going to happen. And look at, he's the starting lineup now. It's essentially that take times 100. But I do think there is something there with what I said that night was like, if you want to continue the Bob Myers, Joe Lacob draft strategy, then you would have drafted Cam Whitmore, who honestly looks great in the G League right now. He's like the home run pick, big potential. But I think it's this different draft strategy where it's like, hey, we're not doing this 2 timeline thing really. Like we need guys who can help right now. And Pajensky brings that plus a little for sure potential. That guy can get better. But Trace as well. What was he, 3 or 4 year player out of Indiana? I mean, yeah, I think for him though, like, I mean, I've floated in my head like, all right, Loon, I love you, but is there some Trace Jackson Davis starting buzz? But just seeing, like, I think there was a possession where I think Drew Holiday had it on the right corner and Trace was on him. And I was like, oh God, like you just don't feel comfortable with him, like kind of getting switched out onto guards yet, as you do with like Loon, even though like the guard still might score, Loon doesn't look as uncomfortable in that position as Trace does. But, Trace brings all of that athletic big stuff that quite frankly, like you think from the fan perspective and everyone's just like, this is what we need. This is what we need. And then, the Warriors end up doing the Warriors thing and it ends up working without that. And they're like, look, like we do this. You guys don't know what you're talking about. It seemed like the fans knew what they were talking about here with just get one big guy who's athletic. And that's a game changer. Trace to me didn't do anything spectacular out of the ordinary besides that Jaylen Brown block. Other than that, he was just rim running, run to the hoop at the right time, get the lob. And I mean, it really seems like what this team has been needing. And reports said they went after McGee in the offseason. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll continue to see how this plays out. I mean, I even have the lineup stats here. If I filter by plus minus, so what I did is very specific stat range just to get exactly what I want. But I filtered by the Golden State Warriors and I filtered by totals. So we're not going to see a per game thing. We're seeing totals here. And I'm looking at lineups. And the last little filter I did is I only want to see the stats since they put Pajemski in the starting lineup, which was the Clippers game. So that's essentially what Clippers. Who was after the Clippers? Was it Portland or was it Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, I think.
Okay. And then
I'll look it up.
Actually, you know what? I have it. It was Clippers to Portland. No. It was Clippers to Brooklyn to Portland to Boston. So it's these last 4 games is the stats I have for this. And if I filter by plus minus, Trace Jackson Davis himself appears. This lineup, it's the Chris Paul, Curry, Clay, Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis. So the closing lineup from 2 nights ago, that ended up going into OT as well. They already have logged 13 minutes together. They're a plus 14. And then the lineup with the most plus minus is same lineup: Chris Paul, Steph, Clay, Kuminga, but Looney instead of Trace Jackson Davis. This actually has played 4 games together, 18 combined minutes. They are a plus 18. And I went to go find our starting lineup. I was like, where the hell is our starting lineup? It's played 40 minutes together. Steph, Clay, Pajemski, Kuminga, Looney. They're a minus 8.
Ooh.
Which is, a little interesting. But
so they're starting off first quarters until that first substitution
where Chris Paul comes in.
Yeah, they're losing. They're losing those minutes.
Yeah, and then the second most played lineup by minute since that, again, very specific stat range, but I just wanted to find it since we switched up the starting lineup. It's Chris Paul, B-Pods, Wiggs, Moody, Saric. They're plus 10, the second most played lineup since that. But I think I was interested to see, because I haven't recorded on this podcast in a minute, and I've made tons of different takes. And then since I've been gone, like not on this podcast, I've had so many differing opinions on what the move was here. And I know I texted you and Ben. I was like, let's lean into more of like a Kings Pacers, just go all offense while we're missing.
I think you jinxed the Pacers with that comment, by the way.
Yeah, they've sucked since the in-season tournament. Same with the Lakers. I don't think the Lakers have won a damn game since the tournament.
The Kings are playing pretty well, though.
The Kings are playing pretty well, but yeah, just like we're missing Draymond and GP2, who are our two best defenders. Let's lean into more of an offensive, short-term approach, and we haven't necessarily totally done that. Like I don't think that's been Steve Kerr's total intention. I think it's more so like we're just kind of defensively limited. But I think the clear. Again, didn't say this on the podcast. If people were to go back to the last episode, or the one I was on, I'm probably asking for Clay to be traded. But about a couple games before the Clippers, a couple days before the Clippers game, I had this just change of mind where it's like, I think it was the OKC game that they lost in overtime, that Chet hit those free throws. They go to overtime. If you look at the only reason we're in that damn game, it's because of Klay Thompson hitting tough jumpers. So it's like, this guy needs to be a part of, any type of success because he's so pivotal. The ability to score like he does, like we just don't have really anyone on our team that can do that on any given night. And so I think it was trying to find a way to optimize Klay. And, I think Plus Minus had said throughout the year so far that it's not necessarily like he's like just taking really tough shots and he's doing it to himself, but also the defense isn't really giving him much. And there was that debate on Twitter where like, wait, no, two don't get sent out on Klay. Like when Klay does a pick and roll, it's not like they shoot the screen like they do with Curry. It's like, no, they do actually, because he's such a threat from outside. And so I think the starting lineup change with putting B-Pods in, the point to me is to put someone in there who can dribble, pass, and shoot. It's the way that it's the direction that the NBA is going. You look at OKC, I don't think they have anyone in that starting lineup who can't dribble, pass, and shoot. Whenever they get the ball at any given time, J-Dub, SGA, Giddey, Chet, and Lou Dort can get the ball at the perimeter. Either they shoot the shot, or they pass the ball, or they drive. They could do any three of those options. On the Warriors, it gets a little limited. Loon can't do a damn thing when he gets the ball on the perimeter. Like he can't. He's not going to dribble. He's not going to pass. He's going to pass. He's not going to shoot. With Klay, he can potentially dribble, kind of pass, kind of shoot. Steph, he could do all three. And that's where you start going down the line with like Wiggs being in that starting lineup. It's like, okay, current day Wiggs, who's having a really hard time. Like he's pretty limited right now. He can only do so many things. He can kind of pass it, can't really shoot it, not really trusting his handle. So I think that the insertion of Brandon Pajemski in that lineup is you identify who on your team is capable of dribble, passing, and shoot. Because if you're able to do all three, that just opens up things for the rest of the offense. There's three guys on our team that can do that at the moment, and they're all small. It's Steph, Pods, and CP3. And to me, Pods just made more sense because Pods is faster. Like he can speed up and off, and CP is just naturally going to slow things down. I think having Pods in the starting lineup makes a little more sense to just kind of keep the high pace up.
CP shoots that flat tire jumper very early in the game where he's just short. I'm like, dude, you gotta put something into these jumpers, man. I want to do a little exercise. And so I think obviously Trace, he is going to match up against certain teams better than others. And Loon is going to match up against certain teams better than others. So I just want to take the top 8 as it currently stands. The Warriors are actually 11th right now in the West. The top 8, and let's try and figure out who is actually the better starting center against these teams. Because you could theoretically do that with the lineup. Is Kerr has shown in that he is willing to move Loon in and out of that starting lineup if necessary. Timberwolves, Loon's probably got to start that game.
Yeah.
Thunder, I would think the other thing. I would go Trace.
I would go. We play the Thunder again.
No, I'm just looking at the top 8 teams. I think we're done. I hope we're done with that. Those games are fun, but man, Nuggets, probably a Loon to start.
Yeah.
And at some point, then that becomes a Draymond. And Jackson Davis is probably not playing unless Jokic is out, I'm assuming. Unless they want to get him in pick and roll and have Jackson just beat him to the cup. I mean, there could be something like that, but probably not. The Clippers, do you know the Clippers have won 9 games in a row?
I do know that. They've been awesome.
Nuts. So do you play Loon or do you play Trace here against Zubat?
You play Loon. To
I
me,
agree.
the trend sounds like against the slow European centers, you play Loon. If you have to play against the centers who could stretch out from the perimeter, like Al Horford can shoot a 3, Kristaps can shoot a 3. I think there was a couple. I think it was like Jabari Walker on the Portland Trailblazers that could shoot a 3. Like put Trace in, make him run. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it sounds like a Loon kind of is the Rudy Gobert European center. Play Loon.
What about Sabonis?
Loon, 100%. That's the only one you could for sure say Loon 1,000% should be playing against Sabonis.
What about the Mavs? I don't even know who the Mavs starting center is.
Lively. So you can argue Trace, but I mean, I think Lively is just a better Trace.
Yeah. It would be good though for the athleticism because Lively's gonna keep balls alive.
I'd almost say Sharich.
Just to stretch him out.
Oh yeah, stretch on the perimeter.
Stretch him out. And what about the Pelicans?
Valanciunas, probably Loon.
Yeah, I think so too. And then the Lakers probably Looney.
I don't know. I just hope Draymond's back and just goes small.
Yeah, I think you'd have to play all 3 of them actually, depending on the matchup.
I'd start with Sharich if anything. I just get AD out of the paint. That's the only chance you have to beat the Lakers, especially the JaMychal Green game 2. Was it the JaMychal Green game 2? Put him in left corner, make AD guard him, and just bang.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Just getting AD out.
And yeah, I didn't even mention Sharich because he is so poor.
He's gotten the starts though. Like he started against the Clippers as an adjustment. It wasn't like a permanent thing. It was let's stretch these guys out. And he started against, I want to say it was game 1 or game 2 of the Clippers. I forget which one it was.
He shoots like a small forward, and he plays center like he's a small forward defensively. Like he's just really bad there. And I'm not saying that Trace is great there, but just the athleticism alone, if he does make mistakes, he can actually catch up to them. But I do love Sharich coming off the bench because I don't know if teams have not figured it out, but he is in there to shoot 3-pointers. And they don't figure that out until the second half for some reason, after he's already got like 3 of them.
And then we keep him on the bench.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So what do you think about Moody right now? Because Moody, out of all the 4, Kuminga, Moody, Jackson Davis, and Pods, he's kind of on he's kind of the 4th guy as far as maybe the impact, and he's almost too consistently Moses Moody, I think, for fans to be excited about what he's doing. I like it when he gets in, but he doesn't really get that run like Kuminga and Pods and even Trace in the Boston game.
Yeah. I mean, what's new with the Moses Moody story? He's just always on kind of like just barely the outskirts. I know that.
I wonder if he's going to get traded.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's untouchable whatsoever. I think Kuminga's, it's crazy sometimes how the NBA is. When Moody has those 3-game stretch, you're like, oh my God, Moody's more valuable than Kuminga now. And then it feels like we're kind of back at Kuminga was the more valuable one. But I mean, against the Celtics, I know there was a spot where Moody hit a 3, and then you see CP, I think, go to the scorers table, and you're like, surely they're not taking out Moses, right? Like, are you about to get Sacramento flashbacks? And I thought they were going to go small and take out, maybe it was Loon at the time, or I don't know if it was Trace, but no, they pulled Moody, and he just seems like it just seems like he's a little just not good enough at some things to justify keeping him on the court. He's just not that good enough of like a shooter. Like he was supposed to be like this 3-and-D guy coming out of college, right? And I still feel like his jumper is not exactly like, clear cut, would trust him to shoot something in rhythm. And then you talk
I like him in the corner.
Yeah, I like him in the corner, but he's not really like a catch and shoot. Like even to this day, he still needs to like do a jab step to like get into rhythm. And I don't know. Defensively, he's fun. Energy wise, like top tier on the team of just diving for loose balls, being the hustle guy. Like him and Pods is just a fun thing to watch when both of them are doing it at the same time. But I think it's probably the right thing to have him fourth on the pecking order in terms of those young players right now with Pods, TJD, Kuminga, and Moody. Makes sense positionally too. But no, I mean, he needs to be in the rotation.
It's gonna suck for him when Gary comes back too.
Yeah, but it's not going to suck for him when it's the second round of the playoffs and he suddenly becomes the fourth best player.
But you know what else sucks for him is if Wiggins starts to play better.
Yeah, no, you're right. Maybe there is some type of move coming with him because I mean, if you ask me, the one thing that we need, what did I just say with the dribble pass shoot guys? The only guys like on our team that could do that are below 6'3". So. Or shorter than 6'3" or 6'3" or shorter. So finding a wing that could potentially do that would probably change this team's trajectory. Yeah,
I think Pods has moved past him, so he's got a bunch of people in front of him now that maybe weren't in front of him at the start of the season. Okay, let's talk about this Steph GOAT conversation. So I pulled up the list that The Athletic did last year for the NBA 75. And I think after the top 3, maybe the top 4, I think there's an argument for Steph to be in the mix. So I want to go through who they had. They had obviously Jordan at number 1. I don't think Steph is even arguably ahead of MJ. They have LeBron at number 2. Steph is probably below LeBron at this point, unless he gets another ring and LeBron doesn't. Then I think it's arguable that he could move ahead of LeBron. Kareem is just, I think his counting stats are just way out there, and he played in an era, where being on the Lakers and such, and even before that. He was just such an icon even before he stepped on the NBA court. Like I don't see, I almost feel like people think he's underrated now, even though Athletic has him in the top 3. So after that top 3, I kind of thought Steph kind of fits in this next range. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, would you put Steph in front of,
don't say Kobe,
Mr. Russell?
Oh, Bill? Yeah, I think I would. I think if we're already downgrading his 10 titles with him not being in the top 3, he can go another spot down. I think the era thing is just really tough, man. Like you just can't compare eras, and 10 championships today would surely put you number 1, but feels like, there was maybe that Celtics team was just stacked, right? That he was on. So I think, I mean, there's a conversation that needs to be had with like Kareem and Magic too, right? Where like they were able to snag like, what was it, 5 titles together? Was it 4 or something, or 3? Like, imagine if Steph got to play with a top 5 player in the league. Oh wait, he did. Oh wait, how many titles did they win in 3 years? Oh wait, they won 2. Like if Steph had a Kareem and he did for 3 years, he might have 6 right now. He might have 7. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of like, the whole Magic and Kareem thing. I think that kind of gets left out of discussion a little bit, because it surely doesn't get left out of discussion these days, right? With how the stacking teams, 2017 through 19 will never be forgotten. LeBron's Miami Heatles will never be forgotten. But it doesn't seem to be like that, in past
believe
eras.
me, when Laker fans start to talk, I go remind them of in Magic's second year, where he was already asking for a trade. I remind them of that. I also remind them of the 84 finals when he made a couple of mistakes and he was nicknamed Tragic Johnson.
That's good.
I remind Laker fans that they seem to have short memories about that stuff. Okay, speaking of Magic, he is at number 5. I think the thing that hurts Magic is the longevity of his career, obviously, which is
how much. Okay, so how long was he in his prime? Would you say? Because Steph's been like, okay, would you say, when was Steph's first All-Star appearance? Was it 2014 or 2013? Because if it's 2013, then we're a decade in.
I think it's
We're a
3.
decade in of like prime Steph.
So Magic basically, as a rookie, was in his prime. That's
Okay.
how good he was. So from his rookie season all the way through he retired, and he was in his prime. So from
Well, how long was the gap? I always forget.
12 years, 12 seasons.
But when
And
was the
then,
gap when he wasn't playing?
well, he did, yeah, he I think it was, what was it, 80 to 91, and then he played in the Olympics in 92, played in the All-Star game in 92, tried to come back in 94, 95, maybe 95, and played a little bit through the playoffs, I believe. And then
So his
I think
career was essentially already over by the time he wasn't able to play.
no, I think if he did not get HIV, he would have been able to play through the
92.
later 90s.
Oh
No, he
wow.
would have been able to play through 95, 96, 97. Then at that point, he's going to be a little older, but he changed his game to be a little bit more of like a point power forward because he was
Yeah.
just much bigger. But yeah, I mean, what you have is, if you want to say, if Magic doesn't attract HIV, he plays 15 years, then yeah, like Magic
Yeah.
might be,
You might
he
not
might be
touch him. He
the
might be
number
number
2.
2 easy.
Yeah, he
Number
might be the
1.
number 2 player. So, but I think because of where Steph is today, and you could say, well, Magic changed the game because he was a big point guard, and you could also say Steph changed the game because of the shooting. So I think that is very comparable. He is arguable on that list with Magic. The one that's really hard is Wilt, who is number 6 on this list, just because it's such a different universe in which he played, and him as a center, and him losing to Bill Russell, but constantly being in the mix there and just falling short. Wilt is a hard one. I wouldn't even know what to say because I don't even know how to rank him against his.
I feel like I'll just get mad watching that type of basketball back then.
Well, it's just different.
I'll just get like upset. Like,
I mean, it's very similar to. So the good thing about that style of basketball is the pace is very predictable and very slow. So every single possession like really does matter.
just
It's
playoff
just,
basketball
yeah,
the whole
it's
time.
just intensity, the intensity. But at the same time, whenever the game got too slow, the NBA would change the rules to make it faster. So, they definitely know what they wanted. Okay, here's where I think we can say yes. And I say this as someone who has watched almost all of Larry Bird's greatness. And I would say I am a fan of Larry. But I do think when it comes to the end of Steph's career, he is going to be higher than Larry Bird on this list. And if you think about it, the things that a lot of the fans today don't like about Steph, they also did not like about Larry 30 years ago. Shooting, he's not in the air, he's making plays that are sort of really smart, but maybe get a little bit too much credit for stuff like that because he's smaller, or because in Larry's situation he was Caucasian. But I think I'm comfortable with saying Steph, career by career, is ahead of Larry Bird.
I think Steph's ceiling is third of all time. I mean,
Behind,
hell, if the guy wins 4 straight rings, then yeah, like he's number 1. But I think realistically, I think number 3 behind LeBron is probably his ceiling on where most people will settle the debate on.
and then the last 3 guys, Shaq, and Shaq himself said that he would put Steph above him.
Shaq is the most like selfless old retired guy
Yeah,
of all time. I
he,
think he
he
has
just,
Angel Reese above him as like a LSU player, and Angel's like doesn't. I think she just came back actually, but
yeah, no, I mean, he's doing it for the sake of the argument. Deep
yeah.
down, he probably feels like he is
Well, what do
not.
you feel about what you watched? You watched all of Kobe, like
Yeah,
you watched all of Kobe. So like, what? Why is there like a? Why is he not certified? Top 3 with what 5 rings? I guess 3 with Shaq. So I guess he wasn't even like the best player on 2 or 3 of them, but he got those 2 after.
he gets the blame for blowing that thing up. You talked about the Magic and Kareem thing. They had it. And
he's the one who ruined it because he traded him because he was mad that Shaq was not taking his offseason seriously, or mad that Shaq got him in trouble with the allegations, and
no, he
sick
got
of not
Shaq in
being.
trouble with the allegations.
Oh.
So now Kobe is a young guy, and this is, especially with today's society where we really pay attention to this kind of stuff. The fact that Kobe had a trial for essentially rape, and it was during the playoffs, and like people just seem to forget about that part of his career. Now that has nothing to do with him playing basketball, right? That has everything to do with who he is as a human.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden people just forget about that stuff. And like if you read through a lot of the information, the police report and all that stuff, it's not good for him.
Mm-mm.
But fans have deified him in a way where people overlook that, where they would not overlook that for other athletes. Some of it has to do with him being a girl dad and all that in his
And
passing.
because he died, like.
Well, it was even before then though that he was, this guy who was just like the ultimate competitor, and everybody looked up to him and this and that. And I just always like thought it was so, and I don't want to make ill claims of the dead, but again, if you go back and you read through that trial stuff, that there's a reason he settled. And
Mhm.
and at the same time, this woman's life was pretty much ruined during this whole thing because
Yeah.
of his fame. So that aside, I just don't understand why he's given the benefit of the doubt when other folks will never be given the benefit of the doubt. Like, let's just not give anybody the benefit of the doubt on that stuff. So as a player, I think there's a selfishness to his game that all of a sudden he reshaped the narrative as to being the ultimate winner. It went from he's selfish and he's driving people out of town and he's hard on his teammates to, oh, it's just because he wants to win more than everybody else. I never bought that. But
Mhm.
again, I'm not a Laker fan. So if you're a Laker fan, you can buy that narrative. But you can also look at the end of his career and post that second straight title when they beat the Magic. What was that, 2011 or 2010? The rest of his career was just numbers, and that was about it. So
Yeah.
I probably have him a little bit lower on my list, but it's also because I didn't like him as a player. I still don't really like his persona, that the NBA has propped up, because I think a lot of it is just as fake as some of the other stuff that, LeBron creates for himself. Like Kobe was also doing the same thing. But again, I don't like the Lakers, so I never liked him as a player. And so there's a bias in that, in just being a Warriors fan. Like, when the Warriors overtook the Lakers as the California franchise, like I was like, good, because Kobe's selfish and yells at his teammates, and I'm not sure how that makes him this ultimate winner when he's not winning and he's still doing it.
Mhm.
So that's my take, and I would have Steph above Kobe for sure.
All right. Yeah. I'm
All
with it.
right, so we're going to the game tomorrow, later today for some people listening on the audio feed, and we are going to see the return of Jordan Poole. What are you expecting?
Uh, I hope he goes off. To be honest, like I really do. I really hope he has like a 40 bomb and we still win.
No, I don't
But
hope for a 40 bomb, because if he has a 40 bomb, we may not win. But I hope he plays okay.
I feel like Jordan Poole's the exact type of player who could score 60 and he'll still lose. But yeah, I mean, I really hope he plays well, and I hope that we're gonna be there to literally either standing O or standing
Yeah, we'll
ovation or not.
if he gets a
We set the
video or
tone.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, no. But I mean, quite frankly, I haven't been watching that much Wizards basketball, but I do know that Tyus Jones is the one who's been kind of playing well here, as opposed to JP. And Tyus Jones has historically played well against the Warriors.
Against the Warriors.
So we'll see. We'll see with that. But I'm interested to see. again, not really watching the Wizards so much. Their first round pick was Bilal Koulibaly, kid from France who played with Wemby on the same team. He profiles as someone who would be like a good Steph defender, somewhat like a Mikal Bridges, like not offensively, but defensively, really long, athletic, can move his feet. So profiles as someone who gives Steph problems. So we'll see if he gets the run and an opportunity to guard Steph, because I think that would be also fun to watch. But yeah, I hope we whoop them.
The
They don't
Warriors
really have.
also struggle with Kuzma too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And so the big is going to be Gafford. So who's our starting? It's probably. I mean, you can go either way with Gafford. I feel like
I would assume that
it's probably Looney.
Kerr makes Trace earn a starting position unless
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
super, super strategic. But yeah, the Wizards, they've literally won 4 games all year long. They away from Washington are 2-14. God, the Pistons are 2-25. Holy
Did
cow.
they? Okay, is that game over yet? Did they lose to the Utah? That's like the biggest storyline of the night. Utah sat everyone,
Really?
and the Pistons. We're gonna try maybe break their little losing spell.
Yeah. The Jazz, as we record this, the Jazz are up 7 with just
Oh my
under
God, you're
under
kidding.
7 minutes left.
You're
It's
kidding.
been close, but the Jazz were up 2 at the end of the third, and now they're up 7 with
How
halfway.
does Kelly Olynyk have 22 points? former Piston.
Okay, do the Warriors make a video for JP or not?
They definitely should. He won a ring, and he was a focal point for the ring.
I'm saying yes. I'm saying Jordan gets a video. Draymond's not even going to be there, so you don't have to worry about pissing off Draymond. And I think those guys really want to embrace him.
Yeah. What I want to know, I think no way there isn't a video. I think in the content of that video, is there going to be a moment where Draymond and JP are like hugging or like dap each other up? Like, will they put that type of footage in there? That's what I think I'm going to be looking for.
Maybe they just have a random shot of Draymond yelling at somebody, and they don't. They just pretend that he's yelling at Jordan.
Someone hacks it and they put a punch on the screen.
No, we don't need to see that TMZ video again. I don't ever want to see that TMZ video for the rest of my life.
Yeah, so sad.
All right, and then Christmas against Denver. That doesn't feel like a very fun game to me.
Are they healthy? Are they all?
Denver has not been playing lights out, by the way.
They haven't. I just feel like they're really not totally taking things seriously.
Yeah, Denver.
I mean, they're
19-10.
Yeah, I mean, what I predicted was championship hangover, and they wouldn't be like the undisputed best team in the league, but they're having championship hangover and really still like playing solid.
Yeah, they're great. They're great on the road, but they're only 500 at home. They're great at home. They're only 500 on the road.
I mean, it looks like everyone's healthy. So,
all right, we'll be here hopefully next week. We'll figure it out. The holidays make it a little bit harder, but yeah, we're gonna be at the game Friday, so we'll have some first view or whatever you call it in the seats, checking out Warriors, checking out Jordan Poole, and we'll be back hopefully next week to chat about that. Follow us, BSPN Media on Twitter and BSPN_media on Instagram. We'll have some video of what's happening at the game. If they have a little video for Jordan, I'll try and get that and put that up on the socials as well. All right, for Bri, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.